I gave you out a handout. If we can pass it down, pass down if someone back and do it. Okay, we're on the last page, which is the terms for the 39 halachas. So we defined what a malacha is, a creative productive work that's forbidden on Shabbos and Yontif, which differs from avoda, which is labor, which not necessarily is forbidden on Shabbos, depending on what you're doing. Then also to be a Torah prohibition, has to be malachas machshavos, has to be done deliberately, throw it out. Then we have malacha deiraisa, a Torah forbidden activity. That's one of the 39 categories and all the tributaries of the 39 categories. Then we have malacha d'Rabbanan, a rabbinic forbidden activity. Either it resembles a malacha, or it may lead to a malacha, or it is something that is concerned with maris ayin. It looks like a malacha was done, or it is not in the Shabbos spirit. And we have a pasuk that tells us to refrain from activities that are weekday activities. So in the pasuk, it tells us in a positive way. It tells us what reward you will get if you will refrain from doing non-Shabbos activities on Shabbos. It speaks in the positive. Then also it would be the negative. If you are doing something that is not in the Shabbos spirit, it is not permissible to be done on Shabbos. So the language of the Navi, of the prophet, this is in the Kiddush of the Shabbos day in the Siddur. It's on page 248. We have that in one of our handouts. So it says that if you restrain your feet because of the Shabbos from attending your affairs on my holy day, and you call the Shabbos a delight, again, the positive, Onik Shabbos, which would include how we conduct ourselves on Shabbos in an enjoyable way, and our meals that are special for Shabbos, and make the day holy by the Lord, honoring it. And that would be Kavod Shabbos. Kavod Shabbos would be cleaning up the house. Kavod Shabbos would be getting dressed for Shabbos. Even if you're not going anywhere, even if you're not having any guests, the fact that it is Shabbos, that itself, you dress yourself up for Shabbos. That is Kavod Shabbos. Lighting the Shabbos candles has both properties. It is the honor of Shabbos. And then that would be even if you're leaving the house and going elsewhere to eat. And then also if you're having it at your Shabbos table where you're eating, so you have both Kavod Shabbos, the honor of Shabbos, and also Onik Shabbos, that you're having a candlelight meal, which also adds to the spirit and of Shabbos. And you honor it by not following your customary ways that you do during the week, from pursuing your affairs, which would be business, speaking, things that are not in the Shabbos atmosphere. And then, as a reward, you shall delight in the Lord, and he'll make you ride in high places, and I will nourish you with the heritage of Jacob your father. And this is what Hashem has spoken. So, unlimited heritage that Hashem gives for those who celebrate the Shabbos. So this is in a positive way. So then we have that one could not do activities that are not in Shabbos spirit, or do anything on Shabbos that is not exclusively for Shabbos, but for after Shabbos. Example given as if you have the dishes that you will not be using on Shabbos, so then leave it for after Shabbos, put it away. Those dishes that you are going to be using for Shabbos, you could do the dishes Friday night for the dishes that you're going to be using the Shabbos day. Now, then we have Lamed Tes Malachas. Lamed is 30, Tes is 9, Lamed Tes equaling 39. So those are the 39 categories. Then we have an Av Malacha, which is the principle, as it was done in the construction of the Mishkan, Torah prohibition. Then we have a Tolada, which is the derivative of an Av Malacha. Either the purpose is the same, done in a different manner. The example giving here is we have planting and watering a plant. So planting is initiating the growth, and watering a plant is promoting the growth, which are both Torah prohibitions. But initiating the growth is the Av Malacha. Promoting the growth or protecting the growth, that would be a Tolada, that would be an offspring. So this is what we did last week. This is a review. And now we come to number 9, which we did not cover last week. This is psik reisha. Psik reisha means an act is unintentional, but the result will definitely be a malacha. Example given here is if you have a field that you want to plant, and you're dragging something that is sharp, a bench that has sharp feet, sharp legs, you're dragging it across a field that's going to be planted. What you're doing is you're making furrows. You are plowing, even though your intention is to bring the bench from point A to point B. However, tomorrow you'll be planting, you will be plowing, and it was already done for you. Well, most of us are not farmers, but there is another example that one could give where one is doing something where the malacha is being done unintentionally, but you know definitely it will happen. Any examples? You have a refrigerator, and in the refrigerator there is a light, a bulb. And when you open the door, the bulb goes on, the light goes on. Close the door, the light goes off. Your intention is to take the food out of the refrigerator, not in any way opening the light or closing the light. That's not your intention. However, are you allowed to open the refrigerator door when you know that the light is there? You forgot to close the light. Does anyone have a light in the refrigerator that they use on Shabbos? So what do you do before Shabbos? You tape it over. Okay, some people will loosen the bulb, so the bulb will be closed for Shabbos, or you put tape on. But we're speaking now, a case of psik reisha, where you know definitely the result will be that the light will be opened. Your intention is not to open the light. Are you allowed to do it on Shabbos? And the answer is no. It is if you are doing it intentionally. That's what psik reisha means. Psik reisha means something that's definitely going to happen, and you know about it, even though that's not your intention, but that is a malacha. So psik reisha actually is a very a gruesome example, which would be, can you remove the head of something living and say that that's not what your reason why you're taking it, you just want to use the head for something, but you know that the animal is, whatever it is not going to live. I mean, so it's a pretty gruesome example. So psik reisha means the removal of a head with your intention is not to take away the life of that which you're removing, which is very graphic. Okay. Now,
Rabbi, that is a question.
yes.
Sorry. So let's say that your refrigerator has a Shabbos in it, right?
Has a Shabbos
Mode.
mode, yes.
And
They make them?
and so the light, like when it's in Shabbos mode, like the light doesn't turn on, right? Like it's true.
And it has other properties as well,
Right.
which has to do with the
The
condenser and the cooling system and everything. When you're opening it, sometimes when you open the door and warm air comes in, it is starting the motor. The compressor starts off. So yes, Shabbos mode would be turning all of this off.
So let's say and out of nowhere it just turns back on. And you need food from the fridge. Like what would you do in that case?
Good question. Okay. Now, so now you know that so let's speak in two parts. What would be if you did not know, you put on the tape and it didn't stick well. And you open the refrigerator and the light is on.
You have to leave the fridge open all Shabbos?
So now our question is, we have two malachas. One malacha is igniting, and one malacha is extinguishing. Each one is an independent malacha. It's not just part of one thing and you're just, undoing it by closing the refrigerator quickly. What happened was now the refrigerator is open, the light is open. Closing the light is a new malacha of extinguishing, putting out a fire. So what do we do in such a case? So now the refrigerator door is open, so you're stuck. What you could do is minimize and do something that the food will not spoil. What could we do besides closing the door, which will be closing the lights? What could we do that to minimize that the hot air should not go in if it does go in a very minimal way? What could we do?
We don't close the
You
door.
can't close it.
Maybe
Can you
like
close
cover
it?
it,
Huh?
like a sheet over it or something like that.
That's right. Okay. What you do is you try to, you know how far, the door goes before it will close. You try to minimize how open the door is, and you'll then put a chair in front of the door so it doesn't swing back open. Now you haven't closed the door, but you minimize how open it is, and you're going to move it as close as you could. So make sure that you're not going to close the door. The next thing would be, as was suggested, put something over it, a sheet that's going to be a cover for it. So the food will not spoil over Shabbos if that was done. Now, the other question is, that's already a very, what could you do to open the door? You don't have anything for Shabbos. So this is a lesson for itself. When could you ask someone who is not Jewish, who is not obligated to keep Shabbos, when could you ask them to do something for you?
Yeah,
That would include having help on Shabbos. Some people, or let's say we have it in the Chabad house, gets help that comes in and cleans up after the Kiddush or whatever it may be. What are they allowed to do? What are they not allowed to do? That's a lesson for itself. And basically, it is generally whatever you could do on Shabbos, they could do on Shabbos. What you cannot do on Shabbos, they cannot do on Shabbos. However, in a place where there is a mitzvah, which is to eat the covered Shabbos, eating in the honor of Shabbos, then there is a leniency in asking a non-Jewish person to open the refrigerator, and you will tell them that you have something for them that's in the refrigerator that you're also going to give them. So you try to make it as much that they should be also benefiting from it itself, for themselves as well. So, but that again it's not the lesson that we're doing now. I don't want to get distracted from it. Okay, but there is something it is an issue that we have to sort of try to take care of. Now, we have here situations where only if it's done according to these 7 steps will it be a Torah prohibition. Missing one of these 7 steps, then it becomes rabbinic. What difference does it make to us if it's a Torah prohibition or rabbinic prohibition? We had our lesson that whatever the rabbis did, they implemented, and they also said these are the restrictions, and therefore we're obligated to keep these restrictions. These are Sanhedrin restrictions. These are restrictions that are sanctioned by the Torah. So does it make a difference if a rabbinic or Torah prohibition? What's the difference?
Isn't it? So in the Torah it says like you can do anything to save a life, or along those lines.
So in that case, the Rabbanon put in situations where you could remove the rabbinic prohibition. And therefore, knowing that it's rabbinic under certain circumstances, then it is the Rabbanon say it's permissible to do so. And that would be saving a life. That would also be when someone is ill, not only critically ill, but also ill. There are certain things that could be done and how it's done. Same thing would be also someone who has to go to the, let's say when we're speaking about doctors in a hospital, they're trying to keep Shabbos as much as possible. So again, since they are working with lives, they're working with health, there are leniencies, and therefore they will do those activities that are going to be a rabbinic prohibition rather than a Torah prohibition, if this is able to be done and still be able to work in the hospital. An example would be if you have the Torah prohibition for writing is writing on a surface that is permanent with writing that is permanent. In other words, with the ink and on a surface that is permanent. So writing with a pen on a paper, that would be a Torah prohibition. What happens if you're writing with something that is not going to be a lasting writing, and then you have those pads that have a plastic cover on it, and when you lift up the plastic, the writing disappears. It's with a stylus. It's not with a pen. It's with a stylus. They usually sell it as a toy for for children. But this is the idea that it's not a permanent writing. So therefore, if they would have to write prescriptions or give instructions of how this patient should be treated, they would write it on this stylus on that type of pad, and therefore it's a rabbinic prohibition because it's not a lasting writing, and then because you just lift it up and the writing disappears. So this would be something when trying to set up the hospital to begin with, or those who are Shomrei Shabbos trying to set up to begin with, they try to, with Rabbanon lifted their restrictions. So they themselves, it was put inside into the rabbinic prohibition, where there are times when you could take it. The same thing would also be different separating a mixture, taking what you want from what you don't want for later use is a Torah prohibition. Then the Rabbanan said that if you're going to do so in order to eat now, so you take what you want from a mixture that is permissible. So they, to begin with, said when it applies, when it doesn't apply. Okay, so that's why knowing what is a Torah prohibition or rabbinic prohibition also gives us that knowledge of when the Rabbanan said we could be more.
I guess my question would be, going back to the writing and writing on prescriptions, like how would that work in today's day and age when everything's on a computer? All prescriptions and every note, everything is on a computer, so there's no writing in any hospitals now.
Oh, so then again, then one would deal with what is the status of a computer? Is that considered Torah writing or rabbinic writing? That would be its own category. Okay. Now, so we have, let's look at a Torah prohibition that meets the following conditions. It is something that is creative, productive work. It is something that is intentional. Kedaka, it's done in an unusual manner. Carrying in an unusual manner would be rabbinic. And then again, if let's use these situations, someone's going to the hospital for good reasons. They're going to give birth. Okay. Normally, what they would do is order a taxi beforehand and make all the arrangements before, register before, and all these things should be done before. But if it's a situation where they have to go now, so then they could carry in an unusual way. You have to take money. They would put the money in a place where you normally you wouldn't put it in your pocket. You would have it in such a way that would be unusual. So that would be an example of doing something in an unusual manner. If it's misaken, it's constructive and purposeful, then it's a Torah prohibition. If it's done in a destructive way, it's rabbinic. And then that itself also has its conditions. So let's take, for instance, making a vessel. So if we have something that is closed, sealed, and when we want to have the contents of it, so opening up in a usual way, which would be, this is speaking about sealed. So you take off the cover, and now you have a utensil. You have now, let's use this as a cup or storage, whatever. This is something that's going to be used for something constructive, something. So now what you did is you made it into a vessel. It was not a vessel before because it was closed. So you did not have any access to it. Now you removed it. Now you have a vessel. So you've made now a vessel. What happens if you want to have the contents and you're going to destroy this? You want the contents inside, you're going to take a knife and you're going to puncture over here, and then whatever the contents, especially if it's a liquid content now that will come out, what you've done is you've done it in a destructive way. So you have not made a keli, you've not made a vessel. So the Torah prohibition would be making a vessel. Doing it in a destructive way would be rabbinic. If you're dismantling it in order to improve it, then that would be a Torah prohibition, because it is an act of building. In order to build it properly, you have to first dismantle what was not proper and now put it together again in a proper way. That would be a Torah prohibition. Dismantling something, taking something apart with intention of putting it back together again in an improved manner. So let's say if you do have a wall that is coming apart, a brick wall outside, your a gate, and you're taking it apart because it's now corroded, it's falling apart, you have to rebuild it. So dismantling it would be a Torah prohibition, because you're taking it apart, not in a destructive manner, but in order to improve it, take it apart and rebuild it. So the taking apart itself is a malacha. However, if it's done in a destructive way, so then it's rabbinic. So the Rabbanan did give leniencies that we're going to be learning about what happens if. So again, when we're teaching the class, we tell you all of the containers should be opened, all of your cans should be opened, all your boxes should be opened. You're giving crackers in the box. There's an issue of ungluing something, but itself is also a category of a malacha. So you unglue everything before Shabbos. You open up everything before Shabbos. What happens if you didn't? Then we're going to speak about different situations, different leniencies, how it's done. That's a class for itself as well. But I just want to bring out the Rabbanan are the ones who said that you could, for special situations, be more lenient about it. It's not something that we're being lenient about it. When they put it in to begin with, those were the rules that they put together. Yes.
So just being clear, like if you open a can on Shabbos, that's making a vessel. So you can't necessarily open.
So then there are
Shabbos.
leniencies.
Okay.
How it's done, that you're not making a vessel, you're throwing it out, you're opening it halfway. There's a lot of
Okay.
details that you're getting around this,
Okay.
where if this is the only thing, this is something that you really want to have on Shabbos,
And
I think Shabbos.
so, and for the going back to the saving of a life, it's
That
better
whatever is
to-
netted, no.
and even for a
So
prohibition.
here we have, if it's saving a life and every moment makes a difference,
Yeah.
then you don't go start thinking what's Rabbanan and what's Raisa and what you could and what you can't do. You save the life.
Okay.
If it's something that the person needs care, and the person's
And-
critical, then you have the options of how to do
How
it.
to do it.
But if it's an emergency, then you don't start thinking, because that itself is taking away, is
Okay.
endangering the person's life.
Okay.
So that, and also we have a halacha that you don't go looking for someone who is not Jewish. You have a halacha that the person who is most respected should be the one who's going to initiate and do, because people might be hesitant and say, well, how do I do this? Should I make this? Can I do it this way? So there's someone who's knowledgeable, does it, and everyone sees that this is something that is completely permissible, and that's to make sure that the life is saved as swiftly as possible. Then we also have davar miskayim, something that is lasting. Only then it is a Torah prohibition, and that would be an example. Making a knot on Shabbos would be is one of the lamates malachas. Tying something permanently is one of the lamates malachas. Only if it's going to be permanent and lasting does it become a Torah prohibition. If it's done temporarily, then it is rabbinic. And again, we have the conditions that go with it. It's done kula, it's done entirely and completely, and only one person is doing it. Done it entirely. If it could be done by one person and two people are doing it, then it's rabbinic. It's something that the result is needed. If the result is not needed, then it becomes rabbinic. So these are the again these terms will be used when we're actually going to be using these malachas. I just want to make you familiar with these terms. Any questions of what we've covered now?
What about like a medical emergency that's not like life-threatening?
So we'll go. There's a chapter on that. Okay. So now we're going to start today. This is the book that we have. We don't have enough copies. Are there enough copies? I think there.
Can I ask another question while they're getting?
Yes.
What about like when people use their young children and then they like push a button in the oven or do the?
There's a difference between the father is not allowed to tell a child to do so. He has a strict instruction not to encourage a child to do any prohibition.
mother can?
So I'm saying the father has a specific a commandment, not with the others. Again, it matters it matters the age of the child, matters if the child understands what Shabbos is. These are all taken into consideration. So we do have in this book, we have the preparations for Shabbos. This I'm assuming is being covered in your other classes. Preparation for Shabbos, the lighting of the Shabbos candles. I believe you have this in other classes as well, so we're not going to duplicate it. So we're going to do the Lamates Malachas, and that is on page 79, which is planting. Now you had in the Mishkan, you had different articles in the Mishkan that had to be colored, had to be dyed. In order to get this dye, it came from various plants. So all of the steps that it takes to produce the dye are a part of the Lamates Malachas, are a part of the 39 categories of what is considered forbidden activities. Now, how did they plant when they were in the desert? They had to plant these different. So this was actually done by the Mishkan. The Mishkan, they were at Mount Sinai, and they were doing all of the activities to build a Mishkan there. So how did they get these herbs? So when the Jewish people were at Mount Sinai, Medrash tells us, Hashem made it into a beautiful environment. Everything started growing. Everything was beautiful, plants, flowers. So this was a part of Hashem's preparation for Matan Torah. They came to a beautiful environment. They first came to a desert, but then Hashem made the desert bloom. And they did plant these herbs and plants for the dyes. So now we have three parts of planting that is a part of this malacha. Number one is initiating growth. Number two is promoting growth. Number three is protecting growth. Each of these is a part of this malacha. Each of these are a Torah prohibition. So now let's look at initiating growth. That would include, initiating growth is sowing seeds. SOW, for those who English is not their first language, is pronounced sowing, but it means putting something into the ground. A seed in the ground is called sowing. When you plant grain, so putting a seed in the ground is called sowing, SOW. Sowing with a needle and thread is with an E. So sowing seeds, putting seeds in the ground, planting trees, grafting. Grafting is when you have a tree that is no longer giving fruit. What they will do is take a branch from a young sapling and make cuts in the branch of the old tree, put it in, attach it together. It's going to start growing a new growth. So even though you're not putting the branch into the ground, you're putting it into a tree that is now going to continue to grow. So you're planting it instead of the ground, you're planting it in a tree. Oh, the same would be if you are going to germinate seeds. Anyone germinate seeds? What you do is you take cotton, you put the alfalfa seeds on them, and they will sprout. So you're not putting it in the ground. You're putting it on a wet surface that's now going to promote and germinate, and the seeds are going to grow. So it's not only in the earth, but anything that will promote growth, that is a part of this malacha. You also have a hydroponics. Am I pronouncing it right? Okay, that would be making something grow in a liquid that's specifically made to grow indoor So you have where they grow vegetables, they grow lettuce, where it's going to be insect-free. So you have different growths that they will grow in indoors and in a liquid. And then the question becomes, what bracha do you make it? Is it a hadama? Is it a shahaka? That you leave for your other your other class when you're learning about brachos. Okay, so germinating, promoting growth is not only in earth, but anything that will promote growth. So then we have also grafting, which is inserting a branch of one tree into the trunk of another or in the branch of another. Then you have layering. Layering is done bending a tree branch, inserting it in the ground, and then it will sprout roots. They will do that with vines of grapes. The grapevine, when they want to now start a new vine, what they will do is take the original vine. It's very, it's flexible. What they will now is put it in the ground and then put earth on top of it. And it's still attached to the original vine. What they're going to do is wait. They know these are the farmers. They wait until the vine now will sprout its own roots. Then it will start growing on its own. They will cut it from its mother vine, and now you've now started a new growth. That itself, the layering itself, is also planting.
That new vine, is that new vine considered the age of the old vine? Or
No,
is that
it's
considered zero,
right.
it's
You
brand
have to wait.
new,
Yes, right. 3
3
years. Yes,
Okay.
and then you also have pruning, which I think is more. This goes into the category. So all of these are called initiating growth. Then we have promoting growth. Promoting growth would include pruning, cutting away the branches, and these activities according to the sprout. I don't know why they put pruning into this category. There should be more promoting growth rather than initiating growth. Okay, now we have the toldos, which would be promoting growth. And that includes this on page 80. So we have watering, removing the weeds, fertilizing, smoking, which would be a form of pesticide, where people are doing it in organic form, tarring, and again, to keep the worms away, removing stones alike. So now this would all be promoting growth. Now, number 7 should belong to initiating growth. Initiating growth, soaking seeds in order that they root and sprout. So this would be initiating growth. And the same, we also have an avocado. Did anyone plant an avocado seed? Okay, so here again, you take the toothpicks, put the bottom of the seed in the water, and it's going to sprout roots, and then you're going to get the beautiful leaves that come out. Again, doing that on Shabbos is planting. It is initiating growth. That is a Torah prohibition. There is a question: at what point is the prohibition? Does the malacha take place? Is it when you're putting it in the water, or when it actually sprouts the roots? In other words, what happens if a person did put in the avocado seed in the water? Then someone says, "Oh, Shabbos." You take it out. Was a transgression done? This will depend. We speak about the potential. In other words, if you would have left it there, it would have sprouted roots. That itself. The same question is also if you put a seed on top of the ground and it didn't germinate yet, it didn't yet start to grow. Is that the prohibition, or is it when it actually starts to take root? So this is the question that comes up among the halachic authorities. So the answer is that you take it away as soon as possible. If you've done something, it didn't take. So we will rely on the lenient ones that take it away, and we'll rely on that opinion. Now, number 8, removing a flower pot with holes in the base from a shelf or other object, which prevents it from absorbing nutrients and moisture from the earth, placing it on the ground. This we consider a flower pot with holes, and it's on the earth. We consider it as if it's inside the earth, as this is actually growing from the earth itself, because it's getting nutrients and moisture from the earth. And therefore, taking it from a place where there is no earth, putting it over a place where there is earth, that itself is considered planting. So even though you're not putting anything in the ground, but you're taking the flower pot that has holes in it, and it will be able to get the moisture and root nutrients from the earth, that is considered as if you planted. So if you take it from the house and put it on the ground outside, that's called planting. Removing a flower pot that has holes in it from the ground and putting it back into the house, that's considered that you are reaping kotzer, you're removing it from its place of growth. Both of these are Torah prohibitions.
Changing the water of the vase.
Changing the water. So we're going to have that on another page. We're going to cover it inside. So now we spoke about initiating growth, promoting growth, and now we have one more, protecting growth. Can anyone give me an example of what's protecting growth? That would be a Torah prohibition. All of this is going into the same category of Zorayam, which is sowing. Sowing,
Deer was trying to eat your plants.
chasing away an animal, that's fine.
Because you're protecting the fence around your tree so that like the deer doesn't come and eat it.
Okay, doing that on Shabbos to protect it, or if it's too cold, covering it with a tarp, which will, preserve it. That itself is protecting it, and you're doing it specifically in order to promote the growth. So since that is your intention, it's not the same as, and we'll leave it with this, what happens if you have a plant on your window and the window shade is closed? And this is the sunny window shade. Are you allowed to open up the window shade on Shabbos? Also, are you allowed to open up the window on Shabbos? Question. We'll leave that for, you can read it inside. You'll find out the information. Okay, let's see. Did we get everyone today?
Every day I listen to all the halachas. I decide that you have to do nothing.
So someone said that, so it's, you
It's easier.
have to.
You don't just read, do nothing.
You put
nothing.
handcuffs on, you put yourself handcuffs on,
Exactly.
but it's not that way. It's overwhelming when you're first learning about it. But most of the things are not things that we do, and you're not a farmer, and I don't know how many plants you have. I'm saying these
No,
are.
but I have
No, you plant plants,
in my
okay.
house.
Okay, so,
Sometimes, I look to the water exactly on Shabbos.
so I'm saying, so these things that we get used to, it becomes.
So you do nothing. You don't look.
No, but I'm saying these are things that but when everything is new, it's overwhelming. You think to yourself, how am I going to keep Shabbos? Anything that I'm doing, maybe it's against Shabbos, maybe I could do it, can't do it. It makes you very, very,
Very,
So
very,
right now,
very.
a person who is just coming into Shabbos, you learn how to crawl before you stand, before you walk, before you run. So Hashem takes that into consideration. You don't know,
Step by
you're learning
step.
step by step, and don't let it overwhelm you. You have to have someone who you're going to speak to, a mashpia, to sort of calm you down. If you're very nervous about Shabbos and you can't, and you're dreading when Shabbos will come, then that's not Shabbos. Shabbos is you're supposed to be looking forward to Shabbos and looking for all the things that are positive of Shabbos. So you have to sort of, work with balance. It has to be balanced. And you have to have someone who you're going to, who's knowledgeable, who you're going to be able to share your concerns. Yes.
Are you
Thank
able to
you.
like fruit like trap out on Shabbos?
Before Shabbos is
As long as
as
it's made before?
long as it was done before, yes.
Okay, even though
Yes.
it's killing
That's good. That's
Okay.
everything done before Shabbos. Your vessels do not have to keep Shabbos.
Okay.
Okay.